citizen, same vision is for equal rights and justice for the people them. What's happening to this beautiful world that we're living in? World citizen, lift up your voices.
Welcome.
Oh, you know
Welcome to another episode of the People Powered Planet podcast, where each week we have amazing solution areas. While others may focus on all the terrible problems in our world, we're seeking out people who have solutions. And today we have a very special guest. We have Karen Kendrick-Hands, who is the head of the Rotary Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, the Environmental Sustainable Rotary Action Group, which she co-founded. Now, Karen is an attorney, a public interest advocate, has been working on the environmental issues for years, and I understand was instrumental in getting Rotary to make this a major focus. But let me start, Karen, by just asking you a little bit about your personal journey. What kind of drove you to have a passion for the environment, and what led you to get involved in getting the Rotary Action Group started and working on these Citizen Climate Change Initiative and so on?
Well, thanks for having me today, Arthur, and thanks everybody who's live today and tuning in eventually. My husband was more of an environmentalist. He started recycling at Syracuse University, and I just tagged along. And I think the first turning point for me was when my otherwise healthy young son was hospitalized with asthma twice in 5 weeks, and that was kind of a wake-up call. So I worked on air quality issues in Michigan at the state level. And then my younger son had a big interest in public transit. And we worked on transit advocacy together, because decarbonizing the transportation sector, and you build community better with transit than with individuals cocooned in their cars. Now, I realize it's been tough during COVID, where you're not sure you want to sit 2 feet away from somebody you don't know and they're not masked or vaccinated. But I'm hoping that the world can go back to a place where transit can be an economic engine and community development tool.
I understand you also live in a very environmentally beautiful spot at the moment.
My husband, Larry Hands, and I, after 47 years of marriage, actually built a house from the ground up. It will be carbon neutral to operate, with a geothermal field for heating and cooling out here in Southwest Wisconsin, and a solar panel array, and good efficient energy efficiency built in. It was not carbon neutral to build, and that is painful. Concrete in the foundation is a carbon intense material. All of the construction teams that traveled a long way to our beautiful building site in the Driftless on 80 acres of prairie in Savannah, that part's not carbon neutral. But in 3 generations, the house will still be here, and they will have a fully carbon amortized lifestyle, I hope.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you live in a forest area?
What attracted us to the land was about 30 acres of restored prairie surrounded by some DNR forest planted woodlands. There's some remnants of the native pre-white settler savanna environment, and we've been trying to restore that. This is not passive living in beautiful country. There's a lot of invasive species that need to be dealt with to allow the ecosystem to function at its highest potential. And unfortunately, they planted a lot of ash trees about a year before the emerald ash borer came to Wisconsin. So
well, it sounds
will
like
be reforesting.
Sounds like you've got your hands full. Well, I understand that back in 2013, now I first met you when you were at the Vancouver having a booth for the Environmental Sustainability Action Group at the Rotary meeting there in Vancouver on the environment, a peace conference on the environment. But I understand that even before that, back in 2013, you were taking a leading role in helping promote Rotary taking this on as a major issue. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey with Rotary?
Sure. And I should at this point clear up that while I have been chair of ESRAG, I'm just projects director. Our current chair is Dr. Christopher Puttock, and we're about to roll over leadership again with the new Rotary year on July 1st. So I had the privilege and life-changing experience of being a Rotary Youth Exchange student when I was in high school in 67, 68. And while that was a pretty difficult time to be an American overseas, what with assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy and Vietnam War, it was still a life-changing experience that made me feel like a world citizen. And fast forward, when we resettled to Madison, Wisconsin to be in-town grandparents, someone finally invited me to join Rotary. And I'd not been a Rotarian very long, and I was looking at beautiful countryside in Michigan and said, I wonder what the world will be like for my 6-month-old granddaughter in 60 years from now when she is my age. And thinking through that lens, I heard the news that the monitor in Mauna Loa, Hawaii, that has a long record of measuring carbon dioxide levels, hit 400 parts per million for the first time ever that weekend in May of 2013. And that kind of set off an alarm bell for me, because I knew about 350.org, and 400 is more than 350, and that meant trouble. And I began thinking, well, this seems like a problem Rotary should be helping to solve. I wonder what they have in place to do this. Let me go look and see what other programs Rotary has in place. And they didn't really have any. And so I listened to a speaker on a radio program that weekend, This American Life, who said they couldn't get the right people in the room to hear the climate story. And I said, well, that's Rotary clubs. We need to get Rotary engaged. And that was the moment that my journey began. And I took the Citizens Climate Lobby training and read a bunch of books about climate change, and began to get an understanding that Rotary wasn't there yet with its current programs, and I felt that we should have a vessel, an organization ready when Rotary woke up. And so go ahead.
That is so important, because Rotary has a worldwide reach. They've got programs, as you mentioned, that you mentioned being a world citizen, and their programs reach around the world and around the globe. And for them to be moved to be key players on the environmental issue is certainly a crucial boost forward. So tell us what happened next in your adventure to get Rotary involved.
Well, Rotary is an interesting hybrid of some stuff top down, like the major campaigns like ending polio and raising money through the Rotary Foundation, but it's also bottom up with its 36,000 clubs and 1.2 million members. And I approached a president-elect of Rotary International. He said, to bottom up, you have to work through your club. And I said, well, how do we get Rotarians to want to talk about climate? And it was already, by 2013, had been kind of hijacked as a political problem instead of the humanitarian crisis that it is. And we tried to tell the story through water with the help of Dr. Jonathan Patz, a Nobel laureate, who helped write the public health report for the UN about climate change impacts in public health. And he came to our club and talked about water and how little there was, and how uncontrolled climate change would make water a real challenge for the world, and might even undo some of our efforts to eradicate polio, because polio is fecal borne in water, and every time you have a rogue precipitation event, shut down a sewage treatment plant or wash out the latrine upstream of you, you put the virus back in the water and you make it harder to finish off polio. And with that as an entree, I scrambled and went to the next Rotary International Convention in Australia in 2014 and rounded up some names and met a like-minded past president of my Rotary Club. And in 2015, 15 at the International Convention in Sao Paulo, first 25 people gathered of folks who wanted to see if we could start what was then called a Rotary Action Group.
Yep. And so what happened? What was the response you got from the other people you met with there and connected with? And how did
Well,
you do that?
I couldn't actually go for health problems, but Rotarians stepped in, and we formed a group, applied for recognition by Rotary International, no easy thing. And I wanted to call it the Climate Change Action Group, but cooler heads prevailed and said, just call it environmental sustainability. That's a word that Rotarians will find easier to embrace. So we did that. And then moving forward, we said, well, Rotary likes to fund projects in 6 areas of focus, and the environment isn't one of those 6. All the work they do around health and community development and peace building and literacy and water and sanitation and economic development, those all need environmental sustainability for the program dollars to be most effective. But it's not really there. And thanks to some Rotary clubs who said, we really want Rotary to expand its areas of focus to include the environment, because Rotary did have a history of environmental work in the 1990s. They had some resolutions, and we said, well, we don't want to be in a silo, but they're not going to build an umbrella soon for us to be under in the name of the environment. So let's get a seat at the Rotary table and campaign for one. And we had a champion in past President Ian Risley, and he very skillfully worked it through the board of directors. And we had 4 presidents in a row, beginning with Ian and now up through Holger Knock, who's German, who supported the notion of environment having a bigger role in Rotary. And I got to go to the environmental issues task force that the leaders put together and say, the future of Rotary is helping to protect the environment. That's where the new members are. It won't cost us money. It will help us raise money. The service above self ethic of Rotarians, they want to apply that to environmental projects. Let's make that possible. And they voted unanimously to do that. And I'm quite pleased to say that they did it in a very strong way. And you and I talked about that I might share my screen, and we'll see if I can do that now and share a couple visuals with you to help you explain what the substance of Rotary's program is in this area. So one of the things that's exciting about the Rotary program of work now is the way they connect to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, which were announced in 2015. And each of those wedges in that circle is an area where the UN sees progress needs to be made around food and education and ending poverty. And when you look at Rotary's 7 areas of focus where they do projects, they mapped very nicely to all but these 6 building blocks of sustainable development around clean energy, sustainable cities, responsible consumption and production in the circular economy, taking action for climate, and protecting life below water and life on land. And now with our newest area of focus for the environment, represented by that little green circle and tree and sunshine, we now match in Rotary's humanitarian project programs. We align completely with the Sustainable Development Goals, and I think that's huge. This is the list of project areas where the Rotary will fund global grants. Biodiversity, natural resources, including supporting ecosystem services like pollinator gardens, improving agriculture and reducing food waste. So the words that most excited me about Rotary's formulation was that we were empowered to address the cause of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, strengthen ecosystems and communities affected by climate change, and address environmental justice and public health issues. So it's a real powerful statement about the work that Rotary wants to make happen. And I'm going to stop sharing.
That was really fascinating what they're doing on that. Now, you know, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist, a very renowned bulletin, says that we're 100 seconds away from, you know, a midnight of unimaginable catastrophe of basically environmental destruction, either on the slow track through climate change or the fast track through nuclear war, that could really end the ability to have life on Earth. That could do the same thing that was done to the dinosaurs, make us extinct. Do you think Rotary is getting the message enough to take this as now an urgent crisis that they're really giving a higher priority to?
Well, I would go back to the point that Rotary International, while it's a big organization, it consists of individual Rotarians. And I think many Rotarians are happy to be empowered to work around the environment and can now bring those projects back to their districts and clubs. We're pretty excited. ESRAG is about to top the 1,300 member mark, which within the action groups is a pretty good number. And we would love to have every Rotary club in the world have a member, and every Rotaract club, which should bring us to almost 50,000 people.
Great.
And we never sleep. We're all around the world. It's very energizing to be part of such an engaged world community. It's a microcosm of the power of Rotary.
Oh, good. Well, so tell us more specifically about the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. What are the things it does? How can people who aren't in it yet join it? And what are some of the successes and milestones you've had?
Well, successes and milestones. Just whenever you're building an organization, someone on our board wisely said that you go through the phases of forming, storming, norming, and performing. And I think we're now into the norming and poised for performing stage. There's been a lot of groundwork to prepare. Unlike the other areas of focus up to now, Rotary International isn't yet providing any staff support, so actually the efforts are going the other way. So I think one of our proudest accomplishments is that Rotary International comes to us as content and policy experts in this area. That's pretty exciting. We were recognized in 2015, I think it is, and we're a Wisconsin nonprofit corporation, and we do our work through 12 regional chapters that are kind of geographically or linguistically informed around the world. We try to have vertical time zones so that we're not expecting anybody to have to get up in the middle of the night, except our board members. And when the US is in the winter time zone, our California board members get up at 4 a.m. and our Australian board members are up until midnight. So that's,
Quite a stretch.
you have to be really dedicated to that. We have a newsletter, we have a webpage which is being rehabbed right now to get ready for the Rotary International Convention, which will be virtual this year. We have a series of teams, and we do a lot of webinars and have a lot of good content on our website, which will soon be easier to find. Rotary International recently changed the rules. You no longer have to prove that you have any connection with Rotary to join a Rotary Action Group. So our member potential went from maybe 8 to 10 million to 8 billion with the stroke of a pen last year. So
Good.
Larger group from which to recruit. The main reason we exist is support the development of projects. And we've opened up 6 new areas or 8 new areas of projects that weren't necessarily fundable before. So just getting teams in place to provide that expertise has been a lot of the work we've done this year.
Hmm. So tell us about those projects and how people here can be involved.
Well, we've done a lot of our projects around climate change to around the principles of Project Drawdown, where they did an analysis of what actions are available now that can be implemented. And we found out that there was a role for Rotarians to work around recovering obsolete refrigerants that are really intense greenhouse gases and helping them find their way to destruction and to create carbon credits. Pretty popular project. A lot of clubs are signing the pollinator pledge and creating gardens that support the insects and bird populations that make sure that the plants get appropriately pollinated. We have a group working on plastics. Renewable Energy Task Force is working to solarize schools and communities, maybe provide solar powered refrigeration for community markets. We have experts in getting appropriate technology and user-friendly and acceptable clean cook stove technology that will reduce deforestation, empower girls by they don't have to spend time gathering firewood anymore, and reducing indoor air pollution by helping people cook their food more efficiently on less fuel. That's just a sampling. As broad as your imagination is, Rotary's got a project around it, and ESRAG's here to support that. I know time's going quickly, and I wanted to talk to you about the other hat that I wear, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Let's do that.
So you're interested in solutions, and so am I, and so I've aligned, and a lot of my Rotary colleagues and ESRAG colleagues work with a group called Citizens Climate Lobby, which is in the US, but it's also in Canada and has chapters around the world. So both Rotary and Citizens Climate Lobby are global. And while Rotarians want to be humanitarians and do projects, Citizens Climate Lobby wants people to find their political voice and grow their confidence in their ability to interact and connect with the government and tell them what they want. And around the issue of climate solutions, we want to see a price on carbon. We want to see it done through a carbon tax that starts small, increases gradually and predictably until it's powerful enough to keep the fossil fuels in the ground, and to make sure that it doesn't punish people at the low end of the income scale to return the proceeds back to households. So a revenue neutral carbon tax that's not picking winners or losers. And that appealed to me as a Rotarian, but it was too political to handle. And I said, well, how do I make these two lines intersect? And I realized they're not going to intersect. But they're kind of like two rails for a train. If you look at a railroad track, it's two lines of rails, just like Rotary is one track and CCL is the other. But they don't function unless they're tied together appropriately. And the ties for my climate solutions railroad track are the individuals who are willing to work both on humanitarian projects through Rotary and on political solutions through Citizens Climate Lobby. So while a Rotary club could never endorse a legislative initiative, Rotary rules don't allow that. The individual members of each club can, in the name of service above self, be politically active citizens and do the good work of Rotary.
Excellent. So what are ways that people who are listening now can get involved in both the Rotary Action Group? How do they join your Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group? And how do they get involved in the Citizen Climate Lobby?
Well, you go to esrag.org and you look for the buttons that say join. And it's $30 a year or $125 for 5 years. And that will get you signed up. And if you want to buy a higher set of, pay more dues, we'll take that too. Citizens Climate Lobby, you go to citizensclimatелobby.org, and they'll tell you how to affiliate. And both organizations have a strong presence on the web. And then once you're a member of Citizens Climate Lobby, you join community, and you'll find a whole list of action groups where you can, as I like to say, find your tribe. So in ESRAG, your tribe is your regional chapter plus whatever project theme you want to work with. And your tribe in CCL might be an affinity group where you're in a special position to leverage folks to talk with their elected officials in specific ways.
Now, one of the challenges we've seen in the world is that because we're all divided into nation states, we see so often when an initiative is made, like the Sustainable Action Goals of the United Nations, we have lofty principles and lofty agreements on what we'd all like to do, but then it all breaks down in a lot of the political struggles between different countries and different interests, and my country versus your country, and of course in the incredible drain of military spending, which keeps us from putting adequate resources into the environment. Do you see the ways, as people begin to interconnect across the planet, do you see ways we can begin to move beyond the borders that divide us to really start taking action as global citizens to begin to really move forward, not just within each individual country, but in an interconnected way around the world?
Well, I like the fact that Rotary International isn't organized by nations. When we gather, they like to parade the flags of all the nations, but it's to show how diverse and broad our membership is, I think. But in the US, all the Rotary districts that are close to Canada cross Canada. So we have a lot of by design transnational Rotary districts. In Africa, where Rotarians are more dispersed, there'll be 11 different African countries in a single district, which is an important governance and action level in Rotary. So I think they're not totally given to the national model. We're all breathing the same air, nothing stays put. I think this is like what Ben Franklin says, if we don't hang together, we will surely be hanged separately.
I'd like to take a minute to go back to your personal story. It was very compelling to me when I heard you mention that, your own little baby, has asthma as a result of the environmental damage. And then, I wonder, do you feel like you've begun to, what's happened in your personal journey from the environment? Is he doing better? Have you begun to be able to be in a cleaner environment? How is this way joining?
He's safely in adulthood. The asthma has been in remission for decades, and he only smoked for a few months in high school. Which drove me crazy.
Yeah, you don't want him smoking. We fought so hard to give you clean air, and now you're going to pollute your lungs.
Yeah, I think that was my low point of parenting, feeling like a failure. And the younger son, who's been committed to the opportunities that public transit provide for economic development, community building, leveling the playing field for access, all while creating a network of transportation that can be decarbonized. He started playing with transit systems and testifying to groups when he was in 8th grade, and now he's a career transit professional who's worked in the public sector in Chicago and then moved to the private sector. So those two parts of my life are, vis-a-vis my kids, are in great shape. There are times when I'm bending over, cutting out a honeysuckle or poisoning a multiflora rosebush invasives that I say, really, how did I get here? It's impossible to consider weeding 80 acres of land. But then trying to shift the needle in Rotary towards climate action and the world to pricing carbon, those are kind of impossible tasks, but we make progress every day. And I'm not alone on the journey, and we do it together. So I hope that I'll have inspired everybody on this call to either join ESRAG or CCL, or if you're already a member, thank you, and get you to engage more intensely with our chapters and our project teams.
Well, I'm very pleased to be a member, and I've been very pleased to see your booth and the work you're doing over the years. What is your vision for the future? You know, many times we look ahead and we see a pretty dismal, scary future. Do you feel hopeful? And what's your vision for say 100 years from now? What will our planet Earth look like if people come together in the way you're hoping they will?
I have to act out of hope. That's what keeps me moving, and my accountability to future generations. Our inability to have done the right thing collectively around COVID. While I believe the virus will become endemic, the intense part of the crisis was ramped up quickly and has been intense, and hopefully will be short-lived as we get vaccinations out. But we're not doing that equitably, and I think we're missing lots of opportunities to be equitable. I think we don't ask ourselves the question often enough, how much is enough? And I'd be the first one to kind of sheepishly admit that I probably have too much.
Tell us a little more about, this is quite a dilemma you mentioned that I see, you know, in our own lives. I mean, on the one hand, we want to build a sustainable future, but like you mentioned, even just to build an environmentally sustainable house, you've got to be utilizing a lot of resources that are damaging to the environment. And we saw the challenge that in the Michael Moore movie about even the development of these solar panels and so on, contain certain elements that the very mining of them is damaging to the environment. What do you see as the ways to begin to resolve this and to begin to bring in line the vision we have with the realities of the challenges we're facing moving forward on that?
As much as I'd like another grandchild, I think it might stop at 3, and that's better for the planet than 4. And that's a really tough thing, that the way we express our support of families is to have fewer kids. But to get there, women need control over their, and I should take off my Rotary hat and my ESRAG hat, because now I'm speaking personally, and I want that distinction to be clear. Rotary supports healthy families. I support empowerment for girls and women that consist of choices and autonomy. Women won't be equal citizens of the world until we have more control over the size of our families. And the planet needs, for a long time I've said, well, I know the Bible says be fruitful and multiply, but at what point is multiplying no longer fruitful? And I think it's when each additional human being we bring onto the planet threatens the viability of the human community as a whole. So I would like to see great advances in girls' education and choices. And what they've learned is, once women know that they won't lose half of their children to diarrheal diseases by the age of 5, they're happy to have fewer pregnancies and fewer babies.
Well, I
so
want to tip
a
my hat.
healthier planet is healthier families.
I want to tip my hat to you're putting on your other hat, because I think that is so crucial for the world. I think empowering women is a key part of the shift we need, both for peace and for an environmentally sustainable planet, and for all of us to see the nurturer in us, the feminine side of us that wants to nurture and save and protect our children and our future. So with that, I think I will turn it open to questions and comments from people in our audience who'd like to share their thoughts. Melanie, can you take it?
Yes, my goodness, Karen, so full of information, and I just love what your last hat said, because that is so true. There's a lot of people who wouldn't mind having fewer children or no children. I have no children myself, and if we could do better scientifically and help, men have better birth control. There's a whole thing about that, but that's another subject. But also, yes, like you said, families are having children because they think some of the children will die, and so that's where we need to. That's where we need to get it together. So I love what you said about that. I love what you said about Rotary, and you are just busy. Wow, thank you so much. And we have questions from our audience, and I'd like to first go to Barbara Mueller. Barbara.
Hi, Karen. It's just lovely that Rotary allowed women to join, because my goodness, have you brought in the environment to our awareness. Thank you. I think COVID-19 actually showed us that we can clean up the air, that when we all work together, we can change the look of our environment. Everybody said it's impossible, but we did it. Okay, and then the second thing I wanted to do, that was just a comment, thanking you, and I don't want to go back to the old normal. I want to go back to the new normal, so help me do that. And I just joined. I went on your website and joined. And
Bless you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. I'm a member of the Rotary Action Group for Peace, president of the Rotary E-Club of World Peace, and we'd like to have you speak there too. But what I really wanted to know is, how can we speed up the process of getting Rotary on board for the environment? They piddle around so long, and by the time they really get going, it's almost already done. So what can we do to get the individual 35 or 36,000 Rotary clubs to really understand that they have an action that they can take? That's what I was looking for on your website. 3 actions you can take right now. So first is speed up Rotary, and the second one is add 3 actions we can do every day to clean up the environment.
Rotarians are responsible and service-driven and want to think about others. I think applying Rotary's 4-way test about things, your activities being consistent with the truth, benefiting others, benefiting all concerned. I think Rotary has its greatest opportunity. We are a collection of leaders of businesses, institutions, community organizations. We are perfectly positioned to bring the ethic of using less, working more sustainably, reducing carbon footprint into our businesses and our institutions. It's important to walk the walk at home with your family. It's important to shift your Rotary Club. Let's kind of say Rotary meetings when we're in public are only 1 meal a week out of 7. They could be ruminant-free meals. They could be meat-free meals. They could be entirely plant-based meals, 1 meal a week. If every Rotary event said, you don't have to eat beef or lamb at our meeting, that would have an interesting ripple effect.
Well, it was certainly our talk.
Yeah, that's right. We're putting together a green event handbook. Nothing makes me cringe more than a photograph of an outdoor service project where they begin by delivering 5 cases of bottled water. Bring your own refillable water from home and we'll have a jug of ice water for you to refill. Let's start there. All these little steps. Can you carpool to your Rotary meeting? Is it on a bus route? How much will Rotary keep doing its meetings on Zoom? Because I know that some people belong to Rotary because they love the conventions, but the carbon emissions we have saved by now having 2 Rotary International conventions virtually, and the number of additional people who've been able to participate is amazing. Every Rotary club should have an environmental chair. Every district should have a committee. Every district should have an environment chair. And we need to be constantly reviewing all of the projects we do through the lens of not just financial sustainability, but also through environmental sustainability. So those
Boy,
are more than 3 actions.
I am so glad we have this recorded, because everything you said should be put in a checklist. Have you got your environmental captain going? You know, things like that. Let's just have a checklist. My late husband, I'll tell a real quick story, was after they did the World Conference on the Biosphere and nobody showed up, they were meeting in his office. He was at the UN for 40 years. And they were having a little meeting, and they said, nobody came to our biosphere conference. And he said, well, who even knows what a biosphere is? That thin little eggshell around the planet. He said, we need a new way to describe what we need to do to fix our problems. And so they chatted. And finally, this French girl said, why don't we call it the environ? And would you believe the next few minutes, the environment was born in this little meeting. Like Margaret Mead said, never underestimate what a few people can do when they meet together. And I think, Karen, you are a perfect leader. Thank you.
Wow, Barbara.
Thank you very much. That's a great story.
That is a great story. Goodness sakes. And then Karen, have a checklist for every meeting, and then Zoom. It's fantastic. Those are absolutely marvelous ideas. So thank you so much, both of you. And now we'd like to go to Richard. Richard Denton, please.
Hey, thank you very much, Melanie, and Arthur, and thank you, Karen. You're definitely we're kindred spirits, and I support all 3 of your hats that you've mentioned today, and I'm sure you have many more hats as well. We've had a person from the Climate Coalition here speaking to my club here in Sudbury. She has a chapter here. Kathy Orlando.
I know Kathy.
Yeah, so she's been very active with that, and certainly also support your point on women having control over their own bodies. I'm and Anne Frisch, who is also on this call. We're both members of ESRAG, and we're on your nuclear board. But just wondering how we can have a greater role in that. We were wanting to have a conference or to play a bigger role, but not sure just how to go about it. Anne is in the central region, I'm in the eastern region, but again, I'm not sure just about meetings and that sort of thing. So need to clue in with that. We certainly see, as Arthur was mentioning, the tie-in between all the money that is wasted on nuclear weapons that could be spent on solving the climate, and also the 2 are definitely interconnected. The lack of water that you mentioned, we will be possibly fighting a nuclear war over, because the Indus River is drying up, and it flows through India and then flows into Pakistan. So many of the rivers, only 10% now are reaching the ocean because of all the irrigation diversion. We've seen the Aral Sea and the Chad Sea or lake dry up with the climate. And so one of the things that I'm feeling is that we need to move from national security with the military to personal security of addressing these global problems of the climate, of nuclear weapons, of the pandemic, of famine, of cyber, of radiation. So how can we play a greater role in ESRAG?
I've been taking notes instead of anticipating your question because you raised a lot of good points. Nuclear is an interesting topic. I certainly agree about nuclear disarmament and not spending any more weapons on mutual assured self-destruction and weapon systems. I think ESRAG has chosen to be agnostic around the peaceful use of nuclear, but there are members of ESRAG who say, well, the human desire for energy requires nuclear generated electricity to be one of the options that's on the table. And I know that if you'd like to eliminate all interaction with nuclear fuels, that you're not interested in having nuclear around for either war or peaceful uses. And I think that ESRAG could certainly host a forum to more broadly discuss that question, but I don't think we've ever been directly asked to take a position on nuclear weapons and armament within ESRAG. That doesn't mean it couldn't happen. But I have found, what I have learned is if you gather people of goodwill, which I think describes both Rotarians and members of CCL in one place, and allow them an ability to exchange information, that good synergies happen. And so I guess a webinar series on the implications of both the use of harnessing the nuclear atom for peacetime without using it in wartime might be a worthwhile topic area. Just like in Rotary, work gets done in ESRAG when we have a team that wants to lead the effort.
We're in the nuclear are like what you were several years ago with the environment. And in our own organization, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, in the prologue, it says that nuclear power is an inalienable right. So there is both views are in that as well.
Good to know, good to know.
My views are that without a solution for nuclear waste, it's extremely scary and dangerous, and it's an environmental issue at the highest level. So that's just my thoughts on that. And now we'd like to go to Dave.
Well, super kudos to you, Karen, for all your leadership co-founding ESRAG and your active effort with Citizens Climate Lobby. I really appreciate it. Appreciate this conversation. I'm in a Rotary Club here in Seattle, Washington, University District Rotary. We're about 105 members, very engaged with a whole lot of activities on the local and international level. And I have been particularly involved for about I'm now in my 23rd year of doing water projects in East Africa, Ethiopia and Kenya, Central America. And I really know firsthand, I think I can say fairly firsthand, how critical empowerment is, because it's the women, the mothers and their daughters who are going to fetch water. And I've been in villages where they're walking 10 miles every day for water. And these girls are not going to school. They're getting betrothed at 9 or 10 years old. They're having large families because half of their kids, just like Karen said, die by the time they're 5 or 6 years old. And you know what they're dying from? They're dying from diarrhea, a lot of them. Diarrhea, other preventable illnesses, because the water is typically polluted from sources like animal feces. Anyway, because of that work, I've become very tuned into climate change, because in Central America, where I've worked in Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, the rainy season is changing dramatically. A lot of the refugees are environmental refugees. They're refugees because of the horrific drug and just the groups down there. Other issues too, but it's also climate, the climate refugees. Same thing in East Africa. Our club, about a year ago, started an environmental sustainability committee. I'm chair of that. And we've also got a very active district that I'm on. And we're really starting, we should have been in this area years ago. But I'm kind of complicit because I've not been super involved, but we are now. And one of the things I just share with other groups that are either in their infant stages is find a project or two. We're really getting engaged in plastics issues, trying to reduce plastic. Just we're surrounded by it. It's very challenging, but we're trying to work with neighboring stores to reduce it, have it reusable. So there's a huge issue around education. People want to do the right thing, but they just not necessarily have the education or some of the tools. So that's one of the things we're doing. And then we've also worked with a Superfund site out here. The most polluted site, or one of the most polluted, is the Duwamish River in the Seattle area. So we've been doing kayaking cleanup in the waters and also in the lands. I'm hoping that we can have a large Rotary presence, but But I guess my question for Karen, besides these things, is if there was one thing, I don't know if you've said it, if there's one thing that you would ask us to have as a takeaway from this session to go forward, what would it be to try to perpetuate the critical need for Rotary awareness around climate and environmental issues?
You guys ask really good questions. I want to reflect back on a moment what you said about how we should have started years ago. You know what they say about planting a tree? 20 years ago is the first best time to plant a tree. The next best time to plant a tree is now.
Yeah.
And I think planting a seed for environmental activism. I think since Rotary does love to work through projects, and they're sort of policy adverse, I think that your club is modeling acting through projects, educating that at the district level. And then I think also being very clear that individual Rotarians should be engaging in policy and political work that supports the efficacy of their project work within Rotary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, wearing more than one hat, that's great.
Yeah.
You're an
Thank
individual, so yes, you can make a difference that way. Yes, Susan would like to go next. Susan, if you would go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
It thrills me to meet you, and you're very articulate and very well versed on this subject. And I'm a member of ESRAG. I was so happy to find it to become finally a point of action under Rotary, because it was always like we were trying to say, well, where would we tuck this action? Under water, under women and children, where do we put this action when it's, it's all circular, it's all connected. Well, my question is, we have a fun little project in our little valley, Mexico, 50 miles of 1919, that burn a swath down their entire valley, 20 some miles, started inland and east, and the hot Santa Ana just drove that fire and overcame the whole north slope of our valley, burning many, many homes. It was just a horrendous night. And we all fled for our lives. And it was part of the increase in wildfires that are taking place on the West Coast of America. Anyway, as a result of that, we came together and we built a replacement home out of trash, tires, bottles, pop bottles, and the whole community came together and helped us build it. COVID got in the way of the degree of volunteerism we could have brought in for it, and we ended up having to actually do a lot of hiring, but it was still within the community, and it helped the local people have some work. And then as a result of building that home, which I thought was very successful, we built it for $12.50 a square foot. It's solid rammed earth tires. It's very ambient temperature controlled. It's earthquake proof. It's waterproof. It's fireproof, because we put a coating of nopales mixed in cal that creates a kind of a latex kind of form, but it's fireproof. We did a bunch of tests on it. We have a lot more to go. As a result of that, then we started a repository to collect these materials in advance. So now we have it. It's redirecting articles from landfill, like gathering pop bottles, lids on, clean liquor bottles, wine bottles, on and on. Anyway, my point there is I think we have a really good project started, but we could use some help. We could have, but I have put it all together, and I need maybe a little help in how to present it through ESRAG. I put together a book on it, but I'm sort of stumped. I go over the form and I go, where do I begin? I guess I'm just nervous. That's how to begin to reach out and ask for some support or partnership within the environmental group of ESRAG.
Well, That's a really interesting project. I read about the earth fill tires and the walls made of bottles lined up. And I have to say, when we built our home here, we went with more conventional materials and conventional build. Please contact me offline. And it's an interesting model. I know currently the guidelines talk about Rotary is reluctant to fund the building of buildings. And yet I think that's been short-sighted as they put this together, because the energy usage that is embedded in both the construction but also the operation of buildings is a large sector that we need to decarbonize. And your approach to using alternate materials that are locally sourced and repurposed certainly fits into a lot of the points of circular economies and responsible use of materials. So we need to talk about it some more. And ESRAG has a promotional network that, sometimes we're able to suggest article ideas to the Rotary magazine, and they pick up on them. So again, my information is in the chat. And I see we're about at the top of the hour.
Yes,
Arthur,
we
it's
are.
gone.
Quickly, we'll go back to Arthur. Arthur, take it away.
Karen, I've seen the work that Susan's done here. I'm down here in La Mission. We have the La Mission Rotary Club, and Susan is doing such great work with. It's not only environmental, but it was a poor family who lost their home in the fire, who so much needed the help of having this home built for them. And also she's doing so much with setting up recycle so that people can donate bottles and other things that then become used as building materials, instead of spending all the energy, melting them down and trying to remake them into something. Use them right as they are. And it really is a very wonderful project. And I so hope that she can be in contact with you about how to get global grants or whatever, because here in Mexico, there's an incredible amount of poverty, and this touches on several key issues at once. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Karen especially, and I want to invite you to come back next week. We have some wonderful speakers coming up. Oh, and before we hang up,
If you haven't yet signed up for the Rotary International Conference, it's only $49, or no, it's $65, and you can come. ESRAG has 12 booths there. It's a really good way to immerse in ESRAG.
thank you, everybody. And until next week, have a very peaceful and productive and environmentally sustainable week.
World citizen, lift up your voices. Oh, we got something to say. All we need is the same directions, heading in one way.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video.